Thank you, Paul.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women Drive Change Facebook Live event. We've got several outstanding female candidates that we're going to chat with today, or this evening rather. Thank you so much for joining us. Wanted to just introduce myself. My name is Joan Grangenois-Thomas. I am a trustee in the Village of Portchester on my second term and my first as deputy mayor. I'm also principal and founder of JGT Public Relations, and it is in that latter capacity that I'm working with Ruth Walter on her campaign. Behind the scenes, doing tech for us is Paul Presendier-Cuesta. Paul is an environmental powerhouse and a genius at running Ruth's field operation as well. He's also a lifesaver at tech and is going to be running tech for us this evening. So hi, Paul. Let's get started. I want to introduce our stellar panel. I'm going to start with Cara Politi. Cara is a first-time candidate running for village trustee in Croton-on-Hudson. She moved to Croton in 2017 with her daughter, now in third grade. Cara is a communication strategist supporting nonprofit social impact organizations around the world. She graduated from SUNY Buffalo with a degree in environmental science. Ooh, that's cool, and began her career in sustainability. Hi, Cara.
Hi, Joan. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. Next is Shanae Williams. She has been a public servant for the past 12 years and is currently Yonkers Council member representing District 1. She is the first Jamaican-born American elected to the Yonkers City Council. She has been a fierce advocate for more affordable housing, a voice for the homeless and mentally ill, and has fought for and delivered record funding for children in the Yonkers public schools. Shanae is passionate about her community and wants to take her love for Yonkers and her expertise in public service to the Westchester County Board of Legislators. Shanae was endorsed by the Democratic Party. She is the most qualified person to represent District 16 at the County Board of Legislators. Welcome, Shanae.
Thank you so much, Joan. I'm happy to be here.
And Dana Stilley is running for Rockland County Legislator for District 17, which, if you are familiar at all with Rockland, it spans from Orangetown across the Thruway into Clarkstown. It's a pretty broad district. A lifelong resident of Rockland County, she earned a Bachelor of Science in Economics and Applied Mathematics from Brown University, a Master of Business, and a Doctor of Philosophy in Community College Leadership from Old Dominion University. She will be the first African-American woman elected to this seat when she wins. Dana has been endorsed by Eleanor's Legacy. I believe all of our candidates have. 314 Action, Working Families Party, and Planned Parenthood. This is Dana's first run for elected office. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you, Joan. It's great to be here.
Glad to have you. And now for our host, Ruth Walter. Ruth is running to reclaim her seat in the 15th County Legislative District that comprises a large swath of Yonkers, all of Bronxville, and a small portion of Eastchester. She held this seat from 2020 through 2021, which we know was an incredibly dark time in our nation's history, indeed, around the world. She was court clerk for the Village of Bronxville and the president of the Library Board of Trustees for Bronxville. Ruth is a mom, a wife, a small business owner. She is passionate about the environment, gun safety, Black maternal health, and crime prevention. She's been endorsed by the Sierra Club, Eleanor's Legacy, the Hispanic Dems of Westchester, Westchester Community College Federation of Teachers, County Executive George Latimer, Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins, State Senate Leader Stuart Cousins, and so many more. But I will let that come out during our dialogue. Ruth, do you have any words that you'd like to say?
Of course. Thank you so much, Joan, and thank you to the other candidates for being here tonight. Thank you to Paul for running the tech. And I just want to say how really thrilled I am to be here with so many smart, dedicated public servant candidates and electeds. Both Joan and Shanae are ably serving their communities right now. And Shanae is running for the same seat that I'm running for, but a different district. So I look forward to both of us winning and serving Yonkers and the rest of the county. Dana, I met at an Eleanor's Legacy breakfast. I'm so happy to have this connection between Westchester and Rockland because we do share so many of the same issues. And Kara, I can't wait to hear more about your story because listen, we are all doing the same thing in different districts. We are reaching out to voters. We are encouraging people to come out and vote. We are making the case to voters that we are the best choice for the election that's happening in November. So thank you, Joan, for setting this up and for making this such an exciting evening to be with everyone here.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's get started. And the first thing I just want to let the folks who are watching and our folks on the panel know that this is a chat, this is a conversation. And I want you all to know that if there is a question that comes up for you that you'd like to ask the group or one of the panelists, please do so. We want to learn and exchange ideas and grow and just inspire all who are watching. We've got, as Ruth said, we've got veteran office holders, first-time candidates, quite a diversity of experiences as well as demographic of constituents. So it should be an interesting evening. So let's get started. And, you know, I think the typical question that was always answered, why did you decide to run for office initially? Ruth, I'm going to start with you because you're reclaiming a seat. Curious to know how different it is now than it was before, but just give us a couple of minutes of what is having you run this time.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. So I began running for office because I felt that my representative did not represent my values. And I think as a voter, you want to go into the voting booth and see somebody that you feel is going to fight for the issues that you care about. And I didn't feel that was happening in 2017, my first race. So I lost, and then I ran again in 2019 and won. Ran in 21 and lost, and now I'm running again to win the seat back. And again, I feel like the person in the seat does not represent my values or the majority of the voters in the district. And I think that is a lot of the motivation, and I'm eager to hear from the other candidates here. When you say, like, I want to have better choices, sometimes the answer is, well, okay, then I'm going to run because nobody else has stepped up, or it just isn't a good outlook. So you decide, and I've decided to run because those values I care passionately about, and those issues that Joan had mentioned at the beginning, and those are the standards that I bear to go to the legislature and fight for.
Awesome. Thank you. And I can't imagine that it's going to be much different with all of the candidates, but why don't we just go one by one? Dana, what led you to run? This is your first campaign, correct?
So this is my first campaign. I am a member of the school board, but that campaign was so very different compared to this, and it was happening in the middle of COVID. So, but I decided to run this time exactly for the reasons that Ruth mentioned, but also because I believe that representation has value, right? And so in order for there to really be good governance, there needs to be some representation. And currently, as you heard earlier, there are no African-American women holding any of the 17 seats in Rockland County, one African-American male. And also there are currently 3 women, but 2 are resigning. They're not running again. And so it became really important to me that we tried to maintain the number of women on the legislature. We all know that women lead differently, we communicate differently. And so I felt that there was a strong need to be able to maintain that. And then when I began to do some homework and really thought about my opponent and the values and the skill sets that he brings to the position, it became that much clearer to me that I should be making this run. I have an MBA in finance. None of the current legislatures hold that degree of expertise in finance. And you're talking about a body that's responsible for adopting the budget. Well, maybe we need some different eyes to dig down and drill down and ask some of those important questions. So that's really my catalyst. My district typically on paper is extremely Democratic. 14,000 Dems versus 9,000 Republicans. And the race 4 years ago was determined by a very slim margin of 69. And so I'm working to really flip it back.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Shanae, let's hear your inspiration story.
Sure. Thank you, Joan. First, let me just say to Dana and Ruth, wow, I had no idea so much was happening in Rockland, and diversity really matters and representation matters. So I wish you all the best, Dana. And Ruth, we talk all the time, so I know what you're going through, and you know it's going to be tough. You have a tough district, but all the best. For me, I decided to run for county legislator because I've been in government a long time, as you heard, 12 years. And for the past 6 years, I've been on the city council here in Yonkers. And a lot of the issues that plague my community are issues that are really the county of Westchester's responsibility. I live in the downtown. We have been growing as a city, and I have been seeing as we grow, the issues grow with it, right? So the homelessness has been growing. I step outside my front door, I know the majority of the homeless people by name because they're there every day, and we need to be able to provide better services for them. I'm a huge advocate for the homeless, and I feel that we can do so much more through the county, and that's really why I want to go there, to work on those issues. Not just homelessness, but housing. It's a crisis nationwide, but here in Yonkers, I have made it my prime priority to focus on affordable housing, so that as we grow as a city, as we welcome new people, we're not pushing out the folks that have been here for a long time. We have to think about how we can expand affordable housing, not just in my district, but throughout Westchester County, so that we can continue to be a vibrant place for everyone. So I'm really just here running now because I just cared so much about the issues, and I didn't feel like the incumbent who had been there as long as I've been on the council was doing enough to address these key issues. Thankfully, I was able to run in the primary against the incumbent and was successful, winning 61% of the votes. So now I'm up against a Republican candidate who's never been active in the community, doesn't know the issues, doesn't know the people, doesn't really understand how to legislate. So I'm looking forward to being successful and just getting there next year and working on these issues. That's really my drive.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm nodding my head in such agreement with you about housing. I can't even, don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And Kara, some of those same issues apply to you in Croton, but what got you, in the mix?
Yeah, absolutely. I moved to Croton in 2017. I was 26 and I was a single mom. And the only reason I was able to move is because I found like a miraculous, affordable, illegal apartment. And so, I know there are a lot of, other people, single parents, younger people, millennials, immigrants, people from underserved communities that could really breathe new life into our community if, given that same opportunity that I was. So, if and when I'm elected, I want to run, all of these issues through that kind of lens of inclusion and accessibility. Similar to what Ruth said, I didn't plan to run. I didn't go in planning to run. I was a volunteer, and I kind of just saw that, my voice and the voice of, a lot of the community that I've made here was not really being represented on the board. So I kind of volunteered to represent that young-ish, the youngish demographic, and, transplants and people from lower income, maybe single income households. Croton is it's a small community. We're on the river, and it's very blue. So there really is potential for kind of complacency. But there's so many things happening, so many things that we can do better, from housing, sustainability. So kind of one of the main things that I hope to do when elected, I am running unopposed, basically. So I'm pretty confident that I will be elected. But I really hope to kind of improve the communication and kind of bring the community along, bridging that divide between the board and the small businesses and the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, in thinking about, you started talking about the demographics, and I think you all sort of touched on demographics in your respective communities. And I'm curious to know and hear, especially between Ruth and Shanae, because you're neighboring districts, right? Ruth's district, I think, probably may have more access to the Bronx River. Shanae, not sure, exactly what your district looks like. Help us to understand, paint a picture for us, Shanae, in terms of what your district looks like and how that has impacted how you're running your campaign.
Sure. Thank you. So my district is along the waterfront. So from the west side of Yonkers, from the downtown area, Getty Square area, to North Yonkers, bordering Ruth's district, towards like Roberts Avenue. And like, if you know Yonkers, like North Broadway and like parts of Nepperhan, and it goes towards like certain communities, towards like the Dunwoody area. And so it's really, the majority of the people in my district are people who are renters, are people who we have a lot of co-ops and condos as well. We have some homeowners, but a lot of the people in my district are renters who live along the river, the Hudson River. And there's a lot of Black people, Hispanic people, there's a lot of seniors, it's really quite mixed. And that's kind of what I love about Yonkers at the same time, right? It's like we're so diverse, but there's pockets throughout the district that you have some extremely poor folks living at the poverty level or below the poverty level. In our school district alone, you have about 70-something% of our students who are living in poverty, right? And then you have other parts of the district that are much better off, right? The socioeconomic disparities in just this district alone is grave. And so I feel that we need someone who understands all of it, who understands what it's like to struggle and to grow up with lower socioeconomic means, which is someone like me. That's where I come from. But I've also have been blessed in a situation where I was able to move out of Yonkers at one point and live in Hastings-on-Hudson, which is right next door to Yonkers, much wealthier than the community that I came from in Yonkers. And I've been able to see both sides of the coin, so to speak. And so it's good to have that lens where I can fight for the people who have less than they should, and then also represent the people who want to give back and do more for the community, who care about the quality of life, about the environment, about just making sure that government is running and operating the way that it should. So there's just there's a lot that's going on there, but I'm really lucky that I've had the opportunity to represent a lot of the people now that I hope to represent in the future. But I'm certainly looking forward to looking at Westchester County as a whole and how we can really just bring communities together and make sure everyone have equitable access to the resources that the county has to offer.
Sure. Ruth, did you want to add anything to that for your district, about your district?
So it's really interesting because I think maps, are destiny, and I'd love to hear from Dana if things have really changed after the census for your district. But, we had a district that I used to call, that was like an etch-a-sketch in the center of Yonkers, where I did serve and had run. And really it was deliberate in my estimation to, kind of carve out the more democratic areas of Yonkers, especially along Central Avenue, the far west, Warburton. And so the redistricting made everything a little bit more cohesive. So it's just sort of North Yonkers, East Yonkers, then it's a village of Bronxville and a little bit of the town of Eastchester. So I have a town, a village, and a city, but it is primarily a Yonkers district. And so I've spent a lot of time looking at the different communities because Yonkers is made up of so many different communities. Last night I was in Crestwood, they were talking about flooding. There's a really local part of this job, which is finding out what people need and what people are asking for from their government. And we all know on this call how complex our government is. We have state issues, we have federal issues, we have local, and you know, it's just amazing to me how many different representatives we each have. And you know, it's important that people know who those people are and that they know that they can reach them in a time when they need help or their neighbor needs help. And working with Shanae and across the Hudson with Dana, I just think it's so exciting to work together, getting Kara involved, and obviously Joan, because as a deputy mayor of Portchester, she's in Westchester as well. So I just think that the job is new. There's new areas of this district that I didn't represent before, but I'm spending a lot of time there to learn about what their issues are. So.
Thank you so much. And Dana, I know that your district, you know, cuts across quite a wide stretch of Rockland County. Can you help, you know, paint that picture in terms of what your district looks like and what the makeup of it is?
So it is primarily along the river towns. So that is the former South Nyack. So what's interesting about that is for the very first time, South Nyack does not stand alone as its own town, right? It's now part of Orangetown. And then Upper and Lower Grandview, which tends to be very high income, and then moves into Piermont, still along the Hudson, and then all of Spark Hill. And then it does this strange turn and has parts of Tappan, Palisades, Blauvelt, Orangeburg, and then crosses into Clarkstown. So it is primarily a white district. However, over the course of the last 5 years or so, I think we have seen certainly many more Hispanics coming to live in the district. I've lived there my entire life, so I've seen all of these changes, and you definitely see them sitting on the school board, how the demographics are changing. What is so in contrast to what Ruth was saying is for us, this first time with these new lines, it's very confusing. People don't know where they should vote. They don't know what district they are. Several times when I've gone and said District 17, they're thinking Congressional District 17. No, right? LD, local. And so that's been really very troubling to some extent, which is why we've really, as early as 4 weeks ago, started really talking about get out the vote, because people need to make their plan, especially when they don't have any idea.
Where?
I used to vote at the firehouse, and
Right.
I'm not sure where I need to
Right.
vote. So that really has been a little bit troubling. And the ward system, so in addition to redistricting on the legislative level, Clarkstown has redistricted to the ward system. And so that too has created a lot of questions about, you know, where do I vote? What ward am I in? Please explain to me how you have a legislator candidate and then a ward and then a town supervisor. And there's just all these layers that people aren't really understanding, I think. And so too, we've spent a lot of time really making comparisons, you know, the president and Congress, the county exec and the legislature. But more close to that, you have your ward folks representing. So it's been a lot of teaching as we go through, but I think that also has made it very easy for us to have some really grassroots conversations with a lot of voters who are very interested in what we've been talking about. So primarily a lot of flooding, again, because most of my constituents are along the river, but also because of, we believe, the level of development in parts of Clarkstown. So you take away the trees and you don't do anything to the infrastructure. And then everyone is saying, why do I have a foot of water in my backyard?
Right.
And so it's given us a real opportunity to talk about some real work that needs to be done that simply has not been addressed in the last couple of years. And we see the frequency of the storms, the strength of the storms, and before there's any more damage to people and or their property, we really need to take action.
And so I know that Ruth is chomping at the bit around flooding, but I imagine all of you, and Kara included, are living in communities that have experienced flooding. And I mean, this is probably going to be the first weekend in several that it won't rain, right? And it's become traumatic for many people. They hear it's going to rain, and then they just start to worry and fret. You know, and it can't be sort of looked at in a vacuum. Communities have to work together, right, in terms of stormwater mitigation and other remedies to that. And so, Kara, I'm wondering if you've come across that as an issue as you've been out door knocking and talking to your neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing that we have in Croton is we have the largest Metro North station. So it's a very big commuter town, and several times in the past few weeks, people have been trapped. The trains have stopped running. So there's this partnership with the MTA that, you know, we don't have as much say in as we would like, but it is you know, we're lucky that most of our houses are up the hill, kind of similar to, I think, a lot of the train stations are down here and the houses are up there.
Right.
But it's pretty traumatic, truly, to be, you know, we have people trapped at their offices for like 10 hours because the trains just weren't running. And then, or they stop running. They're, you know, they only run to Terrytown, and then like, how are you going to get from Terrytown? There's no train. So I think the MTA, the Metro North kind of conversation is one that is coming for us in this next session.
Yeah. Was that landslide between Croton and Tarrytown closer to Croton? Where was that exactly?
It was in the middle. So I think probably closer to Ossining, but
Gotcha.
it impacted the whole. And I mean, I don't know the exact number. I could probably find it of commuters between Croton and Terrytown, but it's a ton because our trains usually go express Croton to Grand Central. So they're full by the time they get to us. So it's impacting a lot of people. And I mean, it's a huge part of the reason people live here. So if our trains aren't consistent, you know, we lose the draw of.
That's right. That's right. And so Ruth, I know you've been talking about, it's not just moving water, it's containing water. Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so I think that as a legislator, I put money in to study, you know, the Bronx River, which floods East Yonkers and Bronxville and Crestwood a lot. But there's flooding across the district, including along the Sawmill River, which is over by Executive Boulevard at Cluny Avenue. And of course, in Ida, we had another big mudslide, or, you know, where it collapsed onto the MTA tracks over in the west side. So, you know, we're looking at a major change in our environment and our climate. And what is it that we do best as human beings? We innovate, and we have to get out of our own way. And I was at the New York League of Conservation Voters event earlier this week and last week. And, you know, there are companies that are really working hard on solutions to flooding, as well as local governments. And we need to really innovate. So one of the things I've been talking about is bioswales and other containment systems that will hold the stormwater where it falls. And, you know, we live in a forest in Westchester primarily, and we have cut down a lot of trees. Trees are amazing water containment. And I know Paul's on the call. He's an amazing environmental teacher and advocate. And so what we've done is really, you know, kind of made ourselves flood prone as well as with climate change. So climate change is happening. It's not negotiable. It's not something you can dismiss. It really is truly happening around the world. We had the orange skies from the Canadian wildfires this summer. You know, people said, well, that's never happened before. And, you know, we have not seen this kind of weather before. So the climate is changing. And so what I'm proposing is a regional solution so that, you know, Yonkers can't fix it itself. You know, it's taking a lot of water from White Plains and Scarsdale and all the communities upriver, same on the other side on the Sawmill. So we need a regional solution. We need things now, so quickly to do this so that we don't have this next storm next month or next year that is so devastating. So I'm eager to put those solutions into place. There's a lot of money coming from the Inflation Reduction Act as well as the Environmental Bond Act, and the communities that have their act together and have plans in place and are working to make solutions to inland flooding, I think will get a lot of the attention.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I Kara, I feel your pain in terms of being a village and how much control that you have over some of this stuff. I'm curious to know, I want to talk more about identity, because I think that's sort of the elephant in the room when you have women who are running for office, right? Whether we like it or not, it still exists. And so you're a small business owner. Kara and Ruth are both small business owners. Curious to know how you are going to bring those sensibilities to the office when you get in. Kara, can you share some of that?
I mean, a big thing for me is the communication side. I think there's,
yes,
especially given the, you know, with the village politics, it's so small, and I think people really feel like they've made a contribution if they like post something snarky on Facebook. And unfortunately, that's not how governing works. And I think, you know, we see it with our small businesses that given the size of our community, we have a lot of businesses to support. And I don't think they always feel as supported as they could from the local government, which is partly because there's not that many of us, and it's a lot to, you know, maintain as a volunteer position. But I do think there's a lot that we can be doing to, you know, retain those businesses, to make sure they're feeling supported, and through doing that, also attracting, you know, new businesses from, not to take them from other communities, but new, you know, encouraging our own residents to start businesses. A lot of people that live here, it's a very kind of creative community. So there's a lot of people with, you know, their work from home, creative director jobs, and kind of like building on that identity within the village, making this kind of like a safe and a receptive place for those businesses to really thrive.
Awesome. Thank you. Ruth, did you want to add anything to that from your perspective as a small business owner?
I mean, I think that government and business are very different. I wouldn't say they're the same, but what I want to do is to work together, so that, just as Kara said, you know, supporting businesses, small, medium, and large in the county, as well as encouraging people to start businesses. And the government can play a role in teaching. There's a great incubator, small business incubator at the county level. And, you know, we really just have to look at small businesses as that sort of, you know, engine of growth, creativity. Obviously, landlords like to have their buildings, you know, occupied, and people love to walk around in any downtown and see the creative output. The tax dollars do come back to the municipality, at least a portion of the sales tax. So I'm eager to continue to support small businesses where I can, and to really look at where government can be a help and a partner.
Thank you so much. Dana, you talked about your master's in, was it finance? And so again, talking about identity, you will be the first Black woman to sit on the County Board of Legislators. We've decided that you are going to win. So bringing those two things together, right? How has that impacted the way that you've run your campaign, the way that you've, you know, talked with the constituents as you've gone around door knocking or phone banking or however you've reached out?
So I was not in the beginning, I was not necessarily leading with that. You know, it was on my palm card. And I remember having a conversation with a small business owner and, oh, Democrats spend money, they spend too much money. And even though he's a Democrat, and I said, well, but I'm a different Democrat. I'm a Democrat who has an MBA in finance, and I can do this, and I intend to do that, you know, really drill down and look at the numbers. And I think that there are so many opportunities to ask questions when you're reviewing a budget. You see, it kind of gets me excited. That's a little quirk, but, and it actually ended up being a great conversation with the small business owner. And then I thought, oh, okay, then this is something that is really of interest to many constituents in the county. And I need to begin to have that conversation and let them know that that is expertise that I bring to the table that the incumbent does not have. And so I really began to talk a lot about that. And just how much of a benefit I think that will be, especially when you're talking about, you know, mumblings about whether or not nonprofits are funded enough, given everything that's going on in the county, right? And so it's really grown legs, and I think it really does make me the stronger candidate, especially because you're not going to find that on no sitting legislator has that expertise. And so that is really one area that I'm pretty firm about talking to people and just really letting them know. I can fit that bill, and no one else that's running can do that.
That's awesome. Shanae, certainly your district has, as you mentioned, a wide variety of folks living there. I would imagine that there are a fair share of immigrants as well that live in your community, in your district. How has that helped you? You came to the United States at what age from Jamaica?
Yes, so I was 9 years old when my family and I migrated here from Jamaica, and you know, Yonkers is extremely diverse. We have a lot of, I mean, this is America also, right? I feel like we have a lot of immigrants here. The district is growing. A huge part of the district has, I've seen a lot of Hispanic folks from DR, from Mexico, from El Salvador, and I'm meeting so many more people. And even you know, with all of that, I think for me it's extremely special because I'm not only the first Jamaican immigrant elected to office in Yonkers, but I get to work with so many different people with so many different diverse backgrounds. And I think it's important for that representation to also expand to the county. And part of what I'm passionate about, a few years ago, I ran for county clerk and I wasn't successful, but the reason why I wanted to run for that office because I thought there was just so many resources there. And a lot of people don't know what county government does. A lot of people don't know how to access the resources that's there. And I wanted to use that office in particular to make sure that we change that narrative and really expose people to all of the things that we can do to improve their lives through county government, right? And that hasn't changed. That's still something I think that I can do once elected from this position of county legislator. I think just even letting people know, you know, how to navigate government is important, right? It just this morning, yesterday morning, sorry, someone called me and texted me about putting together some kind of package to explain to people what the voting process is like, right? And something as simple as that, I think it's our responsibility as public officials to go above and beyond to make sure that every single person, whether you're an immigrant or whether you are born and raised, you know, citizen, you should know what all of these different processes are. You should know how to access them. You should know who your legislators, who your mayors, who your local leaders are, and what each office can do for you. Because at the end of the day, we're here to work for the people, right? It's always about the people for me. And I think that's what needs to translate across all borders. And so it's something that I'm very interested and passionate about doing once elected. So.
Well, I think that's been sort of a
Sorry,
thread that has.
That's my dog.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, women communicate differently. And I think that that's certainly been a thread that I've heard throughout all of what you've said throughout this event, is about communicating and hearing when you're out there talking to voters, how much they don't realize what government can do and what levels of government, you know, they need to interact with. I mean, they should interact with every level as much as they can, but there's just this a need for basic understanding about, you know, what a county legislator can do. How much power does a village trustee actually have, right? What are they able to change? And then understand how it goes up the ladder that way. And one of those things I wanted to talk with, to mention about Kara as a single mom, you know, I learned that Tammy Duckworth, Senator Duckworth, I think she's in her second term, perhaps maybe, I think she's only in her second term as senator. She actually was able to get the Senate rules changed so that she could bring her child to work. And we're not talking about history long ago. We're talking about, you know, the 2000s, right? That was something that needed to happen. Are you seeing, you know, policies, you know, as you're becoming more aware and familiar in Croton that need to be updated, that need to be, you know, brought into the 21st century?
Definitely. And I think it's universal across, from Tammy Duckworth down to me. I will shout out the other woman that I'm running with, Nora Nicholson. There was a Zoom exception, I think a lot of people had during COVID, where people could dial in, and it was expiring, and she put forward to keep it in basically for me. For, you know, if my daughter is sick and I can't, I do plan, my daughter is 8 and I brought her to a meeting and she met Mondaire and she said the pledge and she had a great time. So I do plan for her to kind of be a part of it too, which is also different. There's not typically kids at these kind of meetings.
Sure.
But it was very kind, I think, of Nora to just kind of consider that, you know, sometimes I'm probably going to have to Zoom in. That's, you know, my number one priority is always going to have to be my kid. That's my life. So I think just little things like that, and just acknowledging that just because I might have to schedule my day different, or I might have to, you know, it doesn't mean that I'm any less dedicated or that I'm doing any less. I mean, if anything, I've over these past 8 years just figured out how to do more on less sleep. So I think that's what it comes down to.
There's a famous saying that, you know, Ginger Rogers was just as good a dancer as Fred Astaire because she had to do what he did, but she did it backwards and in heels, right? So yeah, you know, you get less sleep when you're a mom, but you know, fortunately, you did have somebody who was there to look out for you, and I think that's what women do for each other. You know, they see a hole or a gap that needs to be filled to support other women, and so that's really why we're here this evening, to make sure that, you know, we're getting that message out to other women. When you take your seats after November 7th, after the new year, you'll be there to help other women achieve those goals and dreams that they have. And so for me and for Ruth, I will speak for the two of us. So now we have grown children, right? And they worked with us on our campaign, at least mine did, which I thought was wonderful. And one of the questions that we got from an audience member was, do you have plans, and how do you plan to bring young people into, you know, becoming more civically engaged? Who wants to take that first?
I'll actually start. We had the opportunity, me and the 2 Democrats that are running for town council, we had an opportunity to meet with maybe 10 to 12 young students. So they were freshmen or sophomores in college right before they went back to school. And this was hosted by their parents. And it was really just a great opportunity to speak to them and explain to them what the roles were, explain to them how important it was for them to help us get other young folks engaged. And it really just took off. And they gave us advice on, use this part of social media, don't do this, do that, get your son, my son, who's a junior in college, get him to do a TikTok for you. And it was really a great jumping point for us to really actively engage young folks. So then, of course, we started to be sure that we found out who they were, made sure that they had absentee ballots, and it really just took it, grew its own legs. But I think that was because we took an hour or an hour and a half and really sat and spoke to them, and they got to know us, and they got to understand our values. And we really reiterated the importance of them exercising their right to vote.
That's awesome. And in full disclosure, I have to tell you, my first campaign in 2019, Kara helped me with my social media, and I was so happy and so thrilled that she helped. My social media looked great because I wasn't going to do it. I didn't have a campaign manager. I was running my own show pretty much. So I thank you, Kara, for that so much. I am so indebted to you for that.
No, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't done that with you. So you're my inspiration.
Aw, thank you. So we have about 9 or 10 minutes to go. I would love to hear, and I think the folks who are watching would love to hear how they might get in, volunteer with your campaign. Tell us where folks can go. Tomorrow is actually National Early Voting Day. Saturday, October 28th, in our region, early voting starts until November 5th, and then it's Election Day, November 7th. So I'm going to turn it over to you all to take a few minutes and tell us, how do the folks out there, latch on to your campaign? Where do they go to help? What do you want them to know as we approach early voting season? And Shanae, why don't you go first?
Sure, thank you, Joan. So it's pretty simple for me. It's my name, my website, ShanaeWilliams.com. If you want to help out, if you want to volunteer, which we would love, we always need more, foot soldiers with us, knocking on doors, lit dropping, making phone calls, whatever you can do, writing a postcard, sending, telling your friends and family, your neighbors, pulling them out to vote. Literally, if they need a ride to the poll, whatever they need, we're more than happy to assist. Just reach out through my website. You can email, and it'll go directly to my email at info@ShanaeWilliams.com, or you can just reach out through the website, ShanaeWilliams.com. I'm also on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I don't really use Twitter much. I'm just being honest. Instagram is my favorite. So you're more than happy. And I handle these platforms myself. I like to know who I'm talking to, and
Nice.
I think I'm just a personable person like that. So feel free to DM me at Shanae for Westchester on Instagram. Shanae for Westchester is my handle. But you can just search my name and I should come up. So
Awesome. Thank you, Kara.
Yeah, I mean, we're very much in get out the vote mode. So we're doing, we're canvassing every weekend. Shanae, I think what you brought up before about this, like some kind of literature about what government is, I'd like to talk more about it, because I think, especially when we're trying to get on both sides of the spectrum, which are like our seniors and our young people. Yep. I think it's hard on these kind of off years to say, and especially even, we're not very contested. So, but it is still, we have the ballot measures, and we have contested elections up the street that they get to vote on. So I really think it is truly pulling people out of their houses. We're really excited. We have a early voting location in the village for the first time. So we're trying to get the word out on that. Yeah, I think it's at this point, our website is crotondemocrats.com, pretty easy. And we have just all the same ways that anyone can volunteer. You can call your friends, knock on doors. But the biggest thing right now is really just truly voting. It's already time.
It's so important. Yep, it is. Dana.
So I had to, I was jealous for a minute, Kara, when you said that you're door knocking or canvassing on the weekends. Going up against an incumbent requires me to canvass so much more frequently than that, but that's okay because I get to speak to voters a lot. And so if you are interested in helping in any way, again, phone banking, text banking, door knocking with me or with another volunteer, I can be reached at Stilley, that's my last name, the number 4, Rockland.com, and would appreciate any assistance that could be given.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I am in awe of all of you, and I know that we are going to be on the other side of November 7th celebrating all of you. I just want to hand it over to Ruth to give us the final words for the evening. Ruth.
Thank you, Joan, and what a wonderful evening it has been to meet each of you in depth. I've met Dana and Shanae before, but just really hearing from you what you're doing in your district is really wonderful, and nice to meet you, Kara. I'm at electruthwalter.com, and we are doing the same things that Joan was talking about, and Shanae was talking about door knocking and phone banking. And I just want to say how important it is to really understand who's running on your ballot. And I encourage voters, specifically who are watching, to investigate what it is that they are going to have a choice about. And all of us are putting our lives on the line to be those candidates, to give those choices to voters. And I think that I more closely match the values of the majority of voters in my district. And I know each of the candidates here believe that about themselves as well. So we want to make sure that voters know that, know our names, know our faces, know our records, and what it is that we plan to do. And then, yes, I can't wait, Joan, for the celebrations. There's a long, long way to go before that. I know it doesn't seem like it's that many days, but there's many hours. And so please, if you're watching, reach out to one of us and pitch in to get a great candidate elected.
Awesome. Thank you all so very much for being with us this evening. It was a great conversation. Thank you to everyone who touched base with us on Facebook. We will make this recording available if anyone was not able to view it this evening live, and we'll certainly share it with all of our panelists so that you can have it on your websites or share it on your social media. So thank you again, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Joan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joan. Good night,
Thanks.
everybody.
And thanks, Paul.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Paul.
Paul.
Onward to victory.
Yes.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.